Hi, everybody.
Good evening, all. It's working, good. It crashed on me there for a second. Good afternoon and welcome to the District of Tofino's Committee of the Whole meeting for January 17th. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 4:30. And if I would first like to acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations, and that there is notice to attendees that this meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's famous YouTube channel. First, I'd like to just make an approval for the meeting location, and that recommendation today is that pursuant to Section 15 of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedure Bylaw number 1229/2016, as amended the January 17, 2022 Committee of the Whole be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's famous YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at the Municipal Hall at 161 3rd Street in Tofino, BC. Could I have a motion to adopt the agenda for this Committee of the Whole? Thank you, Councillor Thick, seconded by Councillor Chalmers. All in favor? Motion carried. And an adoption of the minutes. Thank you, Councillor McMaster, seconded by Councillor Chalmers. All in favor? Motion carried. I know it's Miss Dempsey today. Is there any public comment on any of the agenda items on our Q&A?
We have some members of the public in, but we have had no questions submitted. So I will call once, I will call twice, I will call thrice, and we have no public comment.
Great, thank you. So next item on the agenda, we do have a delegation today, and we have Selena Rogalski and John Sweeney, and they're from the Coastal Queer Alliance. And I'd just like to say they've got 10 minutes today for their delegation, and I don't know if we have them up and ready today.
So Selena, I have promoted you to panelist, so she should be coming up on your screen now.
Are you there, Selena?
Hello. Yes. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Got you now. Welcome to the.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is our video okay? Are you able to see us?
I am not able to see you at this time.
Okay. Let's take a quick look. My camera was just working, so I'm not sure why that's not allowing me. Is there something that would have to happen from a level, from like the district that would allow us to have our video be played?
Now that you've been promoted to a panelist, you should have control over your own video.
Okay, bear with me for one moment while I see what's going on. It does say that it should be playing, so I'm not sure. Well, you know what? I think maybe our words are the most important part of the meeting, if that's okay for us just to speak without the video.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, great. Just let us know when you're ready for us to get rocking and rolling. Okay. Well, hello, Council. Thanks for being here today and for sharing this space with us. My name is Selena Rogalski, and my pronouns are they and she.
I'm John Sweeney, and my pronouns are he, him. We are the founders of Coastal Queer Alliance, and we're grateful to be here today to introduce a local nonprofit that has grown as a grassroots response to the lack of formalized and structured supports, resources, education, and representation for the queer community on the west coast of Vancouver Island. Our presentation today is meant to give insight into the queer experience in Tofino, outline our strategic priorities, identify where they align with councils, and explore how we can support each other.
The following presentation and subsequent dialogue should be informed by the understanding that queer history and Indigenous history in Canada cannot be separated, as acknowledging the harm that colonialism has created within Indigenous communities is fundamental to understanding the ways in which colonialism has also informed our current understanding of queer identities. I'd like to take this moment to acknowledge that we'll be giving this presentation from the traditional and unceded Tla-o-qui-aht territory. The combination of colonialism and Christianity has had destructive impacts on our society at large, with marginalized communities bearing the brunt of those repercussions. As settlers on unceded Tla-o-qui-aht land, we are conscious that our learning surrounding reconciliation will be an unending and continuous process, and we're grateful for the opportunity to learn from those in our community willing to share. Listening to, learning from, and amplifying local First Nations teachings is fundamental in ensuring that our actions within our organization align with our values and beliefs surrounding the intersectionality of all oppression.
The initiative to create Coastal Queers arose from both a personal and community-oriented desire to create a stronger presence of representation, resources, and collaboration for the 2S LGBTQIA+ individuals within our community. In the spring of 2021, Coastal Queer Alliance hosted an inaugural community meeting on Zoom to talk about where we are as a community and imagine where we could be. This event facilitated connection between members of the queer community and allies alike, and since then we've engaged with businesses and community members in healthcare, tourism, and recreation to shape our goals and design initial programming.
With this meeting also came the acknowledgement of the immense amount of work ahead in creating queer representation and resources in a town that presents considerable barriers for queer people living here. Since our initial community meeting in late April, we've worked to create seeds of community between queer individuals. We've since hosted 3 successful queer surfs with the support of Surf Sister, queer skates in both Tofino and Ucluelet with the support of Tough City Skate and Yuki Lady Skate, and hosted a queer art show in collaboration with the Tofino Jazz Fest. All of these events were well attended and showed everyone the immense appetite for connection that exists in the queer community here on the West Coast. These events have helped to connect queer individuals and have helped to further our organization's goal of creating representation for the queer community in Tofino.
Coastal Queers envisions a future in Tofino where queer representation is supported by resourcing, education, and opportunities for community involvement, as we know that creating visibility and advocating for support creates a safer, more inclusive, and more supportive community for everyone. In understanding how to achieve this vision, it's important that we reflect on where we are now as a queer community in Tofino. For those outside the queer community, the challenges of living in Tofino as a queer person may not be immediately evident. However, from our conversations with members of the queer community, as well as our own lived experience, we can testify both personally and on behalf of the community as a whole, a growing sense of unrest living in a town where there is a complete lack of formalized visibility, resources, and representation.
Within Tofino, there are no queer community groups, no structural or symbolic recognition of the queer community through things like rainbow sidewalks, flags, or other visual cues, and no queer-specific events, including Pride. While identities and community groups like artists, environmentalists, and surfers are held up as cornerstone identities, and where corresponding festivals, events, and celebrations are funded from the municipal budget, there is little acknowledgement in policy or in outreach that the queer community is underrepresented or in need of support. The lack of visibility for the queer community through any formalized structures contributes to the misbelief that queer people do not exist or belong in Tofino.
The specific needs of queer individuals as relating to resources are not acknowledged or addressed through any formalized municipal structure, and because of this, queer wellness is at risk in our community. We can categorize the barriers in resourcing as they relate to three issues: healthcare and mental health, safety, and education. While we recognize that all community members are impacted by the discordant correlation of capacity and demand in healthcare services, it's important to recognize that the impact on queer community members confronting these complications is amplified. While everyone experiences long wait times to see doctors, it is a common occurrence for queer patients to experience not only a long wait time, but also a lack of practitioner knowledge surrounding queer-specific healthcare. Some of the barriers queer people experience in Tofino relating to healthcare include the inaccessibility of PrEP, a medication that can be taken as a preventative measure for individuals who are at higher risk of contracting HIV, and PEP, a medication used for someone who has a potential or confirmed exposure to HIV. Although these medications provide little to no financial barrier through programs who subsidize medication costs, such as the BC Centre for Excellence in HIV and AIDS, doctors are unfamiliar with prescribing these medications, and therefore the barrier lies within a lack of education. There are no resources available for those living with HIV and AIDS, no rapid STI testing centers, and no doctors specialized in providing gender-affirming care, whether it be hormonal or surgical referencing and resourcing. Additional services like mental health support are overtaxed and undersupported, with little in support specialized for the queer community.
Queer people who face and fear repercussions for disclosing their identity have no physical place to go in order to gain safety. There are no local queer support help or crisis lines, and no place for queer people to report incidences of hate crime. Those who wish to learn more about the queer community have very few local resources to help facilitate their learning. Although plenty of generalized information about the queer community is accessible through the internet, parents, teachers, business owners, and community members who hope to gain insight into local queer issues are unable to learn about the barriers that exist and subsequently unable to help reduce them. Due to the lack of formal acknowledgement of the queer community from a municipal standpoint, the needs of queer individuals have been overlooked and under-prioritized. Because there has been no input thus far from queer community groups in strategic planning, resourcing priorities, or infrastructure and policy, the needs of the queer community have not been adequately reflected in municipal visioning and budgeting. When policy and planning is created without queer input, it lacks a crucial and fundamental voice that would otherwise be able to give input on issues that may go overlooked. Examples of this include discriminatory infrastructure being built, such as washroom facilities without a gender-neutral washroom, the continued use of gendered language that erases the identities of non-binary and gender non-conforming individuals, and a lack of prioritization or even acknowledgement of queer individuals' needs within the community.
Tofino's various community plans, including the official community plan, the arts, culture, and heritage plan, and the strategic plan, all address diverse values and identities in Tofino, but none make the mention of the queer community in any capacity. The only consideration on accessible public record appears in 2017 when a member of the community wrote to council requesting support for a pride parade. That it's been 5 years since this request was submitted with no further action for resourcing priorities for the queer community from the municipality, it is a telling sign that support for the queer community in Tofino is long overdue. We believe support can begin through input on the following District of Tofino's strategic plan priorities for 2021 to 2023, particularly as they relate to priorities 5 and 7 of community life.
The goal of priority number 5 is to enhance recreation, learning, and social opportunities, focusing on the needs of youth while also benefiting all ages. The key deliverables of this goal include advocating for improved school programs and amenities, and developing and supporting youth programming. Our input on these deliverables would be to prioritize education, visibility, and recreational programming that supports queer individuals of all ages while focusing on youth.
For youth who grow up here, a lack of exposure to queer identities through formalized structures can lead to the misbelief that queer people don't exist or belong in Tofino. With no safe space for youth to gather, explore, and question and learn, their first experience of queerness will be one without formalized guidance, support, or community. For those who fear displacement or ostracization from their family if they were to disclose their identity, the lack of security and having no physical space may discourage them from embracing their identity, which can lead to repression, resentment, and internalized queer phobia later in life. We know that when we teach youth with a focus on inclusion, empathy, and love, that we all learn from those lessons. Education about queerness cannot be an afterthought or a tag on when we are teaching youth. It needs to be an integral part of programming. Including queer voices when developing youth programming will lay the groundwork for a more inclusive, progressive future for Tofino.
The goal of priority number 7 is to enhance the health and safety of the community, and the key deliverables include advocating for new health facilities. Coastal Queer's input on this goal would be to prioritize the healthcare and mental health, safety, education, and representation for the queer community during the process of creating new infrastructure. When new facilities are being built, we have the opportunity to create them in such a way to fill the gaps in our current facilities and cater them towards the needs of our community. Queer-specific needs have to be considered as an integral part of health and safety within our community, and queer input is vital from the beginning of these discussions to ensure that the infrastructure being built is accessible to all genders and identities.
Through our discussions with the community at large in the last year regarding the current state of Tofino's queer community, we understand that education is the first barrier we must tackle before anything else. There is a genuine desire on many community members' parts to learn and support the queer community, but the lack of formalized queer initiatives have left many people feeling as though they don't know where to begin.
We hope to work in collaboration with the district through the aforementioned priorities to create the representation and resourcing that is greatly needed for the queer community in Tofino. We welcome the opportunity to collaborate, to consult, and to open further conversation about how we as an organization can ensure queer input is welcomed and valued. Thank you for your time. We welcome any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Selena and John. I appreciate very much the time and effort, and obviously a lot of input and research has gone into your presentation. So thank you very kindly for that. I will open it up to council to see if there are any specific questions, either for yourselves, for clarity, or just in general. I've got Councillor Chalmers and then Councillor Anderson.
Thank you very much for that delegation and coming to us. I think it was great, and it really made me sort of reflect on a lot of decisions and strategic planning, and almost embarrassed to say that where it has been missed, and acknowledging that. And I think a lot about how much I've learned over the last few years on council and in my life, and where I was as a child with regards to the subject and how important it is. So I guess my question for you is, it was a great delegation and there was a lot of sort of high level ideas for support, but is there anything specific as individual councillors that we can do to help this not just passing on to staff to say, we need more for this? I guess so my question is like specifically individually for us, if you have.
Thank you. I think that we were interested in giving this delegation today, primarily, as we said, like, we just don't really know where the state of education lies within Tofino for the general climate at this point, as there's no kind of resourcing and local resourcing particularly available. So I feel as though the next step for individual councillors would be just to take it upon yourself, if there's any terms that we use today, if there's identities within the queer community that you're uncertain about, if there's kind of if you feel as though your education on this subject in its entirety or in specific is lacking, there are great resources that we can provide you with. You can also just take a quick look into Google and see where the holes in your own knowledge may be. We're happy to open any further conversation with anyone who's looking for resources, really. But I think that a lot of the learning, kind of especially on a basic level, can be done just on your own. But I would really encourage anyone who if there was anyone on council who didn't grasp all of the terms, just to take it upon yourself to learn a little bit more about the community.
Thank you. And Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I think you've certainly pointed out a lot of the shortcomings that we have in the district in some of our strategic planning, our infrastructure. I myself, I don't feel it's the district's direct job to be in the business of education, but certainly there are opportunities to work in the community to increase visibility and to reach some of the goals that you mentioned in your presentation. And thank you for all the hard work. It's great that this group has formed. I think that's one of the reasons that we haven't had very much work around inclusivity directly towards the queer community is because we haven't had anyone to advocate, such as yourselves and a group that's formed. I have a couple of suggestions and one question. One suggestion is that perhaps your group or working with the district somehow could build sort of a high level plan, like we have a plan for arts and culture. We have, different plans in the district. I think the district's host of planning documents could be augmented by some sort of a document that brought some of these things to the forefront, so that the district could use those in its planning process. I wouldn't doubt if there are some grants available out there right now. This is a prominent area of discussion in the political world, and it's a developing area too. Issues around queer and gender culture are coming to the fore right now, and I think more and more higher levels of government, at least, are willing to fund more planning and educational kinds of documents that could form the part of a larger planning sort of host of documents that we have that we refer to when moving on any plans. Certainly the district offers council grants and arts, heritage and culture grants. And I currently am chairing that committee. So I'd encourage you to apply for any grants to support a pride parade or any sort of projects in arts or education that you might want to bring forward, or if you know anyone that wants to bring those forward. I think that would be well received. They're small grants, but something could be accomplished, I think, possibly through that, with a good idea brought forward. My question is, do you know of any small municipalities that are doing a really good job of engaging the queer community? And maybe for council's edification, we could go have a look at some of the work that's being done there. Small towns, as you know, have limited resources, and always there are many, many more resources and opportunities in larger centers for the queer community. So if you could give us any ideas that way, I think that would be really helpful for council members.
Yeah, I think that similar small towns such as Canmore or Banff that are in a similar situation as Tofino, where maybe Tofino, hasn't become quite as popular with tourism and things like that, and maybe we're still in some developing stages. But I think that they've really taken it upon themselves to adapt and make sure that the queer community is seen as a vital part of their tourism, and attracting wider demographics of people to come and support their economies and making sure that they feel safe there. And so while they're small towns, they also have a lot going for them economically, and just have a way wider reach, which I think Tofino is stepping into that role, and where we should be able to invite all visitors from bigger centers or wherever it may be, and set a good example and show people that queer people do exist here, queer people are welcome to come and visit. And so maybe some other towns that are in a similar situation within the tourism industry, but also maybe, smaller populations might be a good place to look and see what they've done from the district level to support. And I think another thing to just touch on is you mentioned that it's not quite the district or counselor's job to educate. I think when we talk about education and why we're giving this delegation, it's just we find it very important that for the figures who are creating our strategic planning and everything as a town, for those individuals to be educated is really important. And so as an organization, we would like to be able to provide more of those education opportunities within things like community meetings that individuals can be involved in. And so I think that it would just be a great opportunity for counselors to join those learning experiences so that they can move forward and have that insight when creating the planning for our community.
And I would also just like to touch on what you said about the possibility for grants being open through the District of Tofino. We have received the Arts, Heritage and Culture grant in the most recent cycle and are working towards creating a project for that, which we're really excited about. So we have definitely been and as well have been the recipient of the Tla-o-qui-aht Trust Small Neighborhood Grants a couple of times in their seasons now, which we're really grateful for. So we felt at this point, after kind of having been around for a couple months, got some projects underway, that we really are at the step now where we feel the representation has been started, and it's truly resourcing priorities that are out of scope for an organization such as ours, which is the main reason why I feel this delegation was necessary at this point in our organization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I want to just provide a last context in terms of I think the importance of now having a community group, and often many of the initiatives that are driven are from community organizations. Having yourselves here now, you have started the education process for council, and I would like to thank you very much for that. And I suspect we will be in contact in the future. And once again, appreciate the time you took to start or to continue the education of this particular council. And we look forward to seeing you into the future. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Right, so next on the agenda item, I don't believe we have any correspondences, and I'm pretty sure we don't have any other presentations and reports. I was going to say in one little piece before we got to the unfinished business, I did have a correspondence from the ACRD regarding, and I just thought I'd send it out there, the press release that just went out for the Sort and Go and the Organics diversion project coming up this fall as part of the larger upgrade to the waste management system, and that I know I was in communication with the communication director of the ACRD, and that'll be posted on our website, I'm hoping in the real near future. And look into your mailboxes, because there will be some direct correspondence for the engagement process for the fall time. They found in Port Alberni that it was really critical for the buy-in, and they're having incredible success with the new 3-system Sort and Go waste management system. So I took my 2 seconds there as chair to be able to throw that in. So next on there, we have unfinished business, and as 9.1. And it was regarding the recreation programming in January 2022. And this was referred back from the regular council meeting that we had on January 11th. And I know that just with quick discussion, I know staff have a small presentation to start off before we enter into a little bit more of a discussion later on. I'm not sure who's going to take that. I saw Aaron just pop up on screen. I suspect Mr. Rogers will be starting, or Mr. McPherson. I'm not sure which, but I'll let it forward as it goes.
Great. Thank you, Chair Stere. I will begin the presentation. I'll just get it, share my screen here and get it up and running. Great. I'm assuming everybody can see that. Yes, I see nods. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today I'll be presenting a recreation update for late 2021 and then ongoing through 2022. My apologies if the presentation's a little bit choppy. I pulled it together kind of today, and I have for my backup today, if I have any questions that I have trouble answering, I've got Hillary O'Reilly, I think everybody knows, is also on the call. So with no further ado, I'll get right into it. I started the presentation with a slide that I took from a previous presentation about the indoor recreation facility. And again, it's just one of the, to reconfirm what we all know is that there's a significant recreation need in Tofino. We know we've been talking about this for well over 10 years. We know we've defined this need. We know it grows each and every year, and we know how important it is to the health and mental well-being of our community. And we also know largely that this comes down to primarily a lack of resources in terms of facilities, but also attendant to that is resources, a lack of resources with our staff sometimes. So this presentation is going to give again a brief overview of the last couple months of 2021 and through March 2022. I can let council know that we've got lots of new programming on its way, especially within the tot age group. We had a new recreation guide that went live on Friday, including new items such as a games night, study night. Zumba is back after a couple year hiatus through COVID, and we have a new instructor. And so if you like to dance to music with other people, Zumba is back. Some days I think about doing Zumba and other days I don't. And I'm not sure if I'm afraid to dance in front of other people or I'm too excited to dance in front of other people. Anywho, registration started today. It was a little late due to some the restrictions and regulations around COVID, but it's going well. We've had quite a few programs already booked solid and we're running wait lists as well. So that's kind of the, a quick snapshot of where we are today. This amazing slide didn't come through with the numbers, so it's a pie chart that shows the breakdown of our recreation programs for the winter spring of 2022. I'll break it down for you. So preschool is about 26% of our programming. School-aged children represent 33%, youth at about 10%. Adults at 20 and older adults at 10%. And again, this will vary season to season depending on what's happening, but this is a snapshot of our programming breakdowns for the next couple months. So how do we approach recreation in Tofino? Well, we have a recreation management plan. In section 5, it talks or speaks to how we program, what are the, the goals around programming for us. That section is well worth the read. I was going to include some excerpts from it, but there's too many. So if council ever wants to understand why we do what we do in recreation, it all actually starts in this document. This document, again, I think council is also aware that may be updated in the next year, depending on our budget discussions, and that'll be in conjunction with the April's department and RMI in terms of the parks side of that. We also have a Recreation Commission, which council's very familiar with, that primarily comment on parks, but do actually provide a great standing board for some of our recreation activities as well. We obviously have our District of Tofino staff, which consists of 2 full-time programmers, and currently we have a half-time temporary programmer who's running the community hall vaccination checks. We also have a lot of relationships with different organizations through the community, such as SD70 for use of the gym and soccer fields, Nature Kids, the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, and so that's kind of the core of what we do and who we do it with. All that being said, the way that we run Recreation Tofino is primarily through our instructors. So that means we source out instructors within our community to provide courses or programs based on their skills and certificates. And so that means that we're out in the community a lot, trying to uncover people who might have a hidden talent or making sure that people who already know what they want to do are supported through the administration and marketing and fees for the programs. That being said, in 2021, one of our programmers actually ran about 35% of our programs, in addition to their regular job of programming and administrative work that they need to do. And that 35% doesn't include summer and spring camps, which account for a huge amount of our staff's time during those times. We usually have at least 1 or 1.5 staff working on those. So I just want to say that while we are primarily instructor driven and our job is to network and work with our partners and find that, we also do a fair amount of own source programming, and we expect that'll continue and potentially increase a little bit as we move our operations up to the community hall. So there seems to be a little bit of a hiccup or concern raised by the community over the programming in late 2021, so basically mid-November to the end of the year. And I think, as I was thinking about today and speaking with Hillary, it seems that the change in COVID rules is a factor and a fairly large factor. The rules for Omicron and this latest wave required us to go back and reassess what we're doing and how we're doing it, and ensure that we're doing it safely and within the regulations. So I think that definitely impacted, how programming was offered and when and where. And then the second part to that is that we've had actually a very significant staff turnover in those 6 weeks. So we had a long-term employee who'd been with us 15 years retire, and that in hiring our replacement programmer one, by the time we finished the hiring process, which is not easy in this current economy, we hired that person to start January 4th. So most of November and all of December, we're running with one employee plus the part-time temporary person for the community hall. And so that's a lot of work for two people, but for one person, it was a ton of work. So I have to say that I would like to thank Hillary for her hard work through those 6 weeks. The programs wouldn't have kept going, and the department wouldn't have kept operating without her efforts. But we're fully staffed for 2022, exclamation mark. We're excited for this next season. And as long as COVID is around, we'll be staffed at about 2.5 employees. So we did a quick breakdown of what we understand the concerns to be from the community, and I think the next 4 to 5 slides will just go over that. I'm just going to sort of speak generally to them, and perhaps we can talk about them as I go through them rather than wait till the end. So yeah, feel free to jump in. I've got notes here that Hillary's prepared for me as well, so I can go through the slide, and then if there's any sort of follow-up questions, I can either look to my notes or tag out with Hillary. So one of our concerns we've heard is that the community hall hours, that the community wants dawn to dusk availability. And this is our schedule for the next 3 months. You can see for yourselves that it's with bookings and times required for instructors to trade off and, people to come and go. We're pretty much booked up. We have 1 hour on Mondays that we can program. We have 2.5 hours on Tuesday that we could program. Wednesdays we're fully booked. Thursdays an hour and a half, and then Fridays we have 4 hours that we could book out. Saturdays is fairly new for us, and again it's been helped with the addition of our half-time temporary staff. It's in order to overlap everybody, you do need that third person. Friday tends to be less busy than other days because many of our families leave for the weekends, as well as on instructors, and so we don't have a lot of people necessarily wanting to do the programs on a Friday. This calendar is primarily for the main hall. The multipurpose room is less booked up, but what we understand from our instructors is that generally, in terms of like sporting type recreation, the instructors don't like that space just because of COVID and the size. And so generally the multipurpose room is something we use for seated events, such as a first aid course or basket weaving or something like that. So this would be confirmed. This calendar is for the main hall. I think also the notes, we've significantly increased the number of programming activities from last season to this season. I guess in 2021 we were offering 25 programs, and this season we'll be offering 36. And this also doesn't account for any other program that we're doing outside of the hall, so soccer, swimming, golfing, things like that. Do anybody have any questions about the community hall concern, and did I address that concern adequately?
I don't have anyone on screen, Aaron. So if any of council does have questions, just pipe up.
Okay. Hearing nobody wanting to pipe up, I'm going to no piping. I'm moving on to concern 2. So seasonal closure, and I think I touched on this earlier in the presentation. Again, staffing was a real and serious issue for us in those last 6 weeks. Understanding as well that the one employer we have has to take time off and vacations, and that's something that's required for them to take. So that there's at some points, especially for this year, it's impossible to be able to staff through Christmas. Obviously, COVID played a large role in this. These sort of switch over times, seasonal change times, we often use as staff to plan for the next season. So that's a time for administrative time, but we can't be doing everything at once. So we have to make choices there. And then again, a lot of our contractors will take vacations at the same time. Everybody else is taking vacations, and so we see these closures. My hope is that for this upcoming year in 2022, with the addition of our other staff member and potentially with potentially another temporary staff member, we'll be able to keep the hall open throughout as much as Christmas as we can. But I'm not going to promise that at this point. It really will depend on where everybody's at in terms of their vacations and what our staff complement looks like at that point. Any concerns about seasonal closures?
Yeah, I just had one question. Are there any problems getting for seasonal closures? I'm just wondering if there's any times where we just can't get participation to run a program. I'm thinking maybe people are on holidays during Christmas, might be a hard time to run programs, things shut down. Are there any times when we don't run programs just because it's hard to get participation?
Yes, definitely. Christmas is one of those times. I do. One of the concerns we'll address that, but I can talk to it now. We have a system where we look at. Let's look at my notes here. Closures. So basically, in terms of canceling programs, we assess them about a week before the program runs, and if we don't have enough participants, we won't run it. That's actually only happened once in the last 2 years. And then with our drop-in programs, we assess it the day of the program. So at usually about 12 p.m., we make a call about whether to move forward the program or not. If you have one participant, we'll shut down the registration in perfect mind. So a lot of that will have to do, again, as I said, to the contractors being available, and then again, people, whether they're in town or not, and a lot of it will come down to whether the school is closed during this time. So then people, and if the weather's bad, then people will look to the community hall as a potential place, but we don't necessarily have the staff, the instructors to run it at those during those times. And maybe before I dig myself too deep of a hole, I'll just ask Hillary if she has any comments about that, just to sort of, if there's any details there that I'm missing about programming over these type of times.
No, I don't think there's anything missing. I just add a bit of clarification that over the years, including before the pandemic, we would see sort of those dips in program participation around the seasonal closures. Stat holidays, Pro D days even, we'll see it sometimes where there is a lot of people headed out of town. We see attendance list drops. And so that's why a lot of our instructors do choose to take their vacations around that time, is because they know a huge piece of the kiddos or adults or families that they coach have already made that choice to leave. So our instructors do chat with us and we try and line it up, knowing that they try and take their breaks when there's low attendance rates.
Thanks.
There's also, there's, maybe not for today's meeting, but, into the future, decisions to be made about, efficiency. So we try to run programs that are affordable to the community and at the lowest possible, impact to the community's taxation. And so some of these times that look like they may be open, you would still require a staff member sitting there, even if they were available, potentially not seeing anybody for hours or days. And so, as a manager, I'm also looking to try to maximize my staff's time and ensure they're getting the time off that they're, that's theirs rightfully, but that they're refreshed, and also considering communities, overall impact, the overall impact of taxation due to recreation. So just kind of some of the things, the ideas that go into these decisions and situations.
Can I ask Aaron?
Mhm.
I think most people are used to seasonal closures and expect them. Whenever we have any maintenance, I know it depends on contractor availability. Do we try and coordinate any maintenance with a seasonal closure? Try and do it during that time?
I think the short answer is no. And a lot of it has to do with contract availability. But the other part to that is I can't fully answer it is that the facility maintenance is generally undertaken by Public Works. And so what Public Works will do is when they understand that they have a concern, and generally for us, it's the stuff that we can't plan for, the compressor breaks down and we just need to get somebody in, then Public Works will coordinate with Hillary to try to reduce the impacts to classes if we can, but generally we can't reduce it by, we can't mitigate fully the impacts. If it's something larger, which we haven't really had in a while, then we would attempt to do that, I think. But it hasn't, as I think about this, it hasn't really come up lately. Like we did, the community hall addition was a big project, but it was outside of the hall, and we were managed to keep the hall the most time as much as we could. And then, the kitchen reno still hasn't happened. And so there is no yearly maintenance schedule yet for that facility, but hopefully in the next year or two we have something. And then I guess that would be the trigger to try to line that up the best we can in times when we're not using it. And for us, a lot of those times would actually be the summer when we have opportunities to be outside and try to avoid that type of activity in the winter.
Okay, thanks.
We've had a bit of, and we understand there was a concern about, opening up our hall for drop-in once the school closes for their closures. That's difficult for us just from the simple fact is, going back to the calendar that I presented earlier, the hall is booked up. And so just because the school can't do it doesn't mean that our space is automatically available. And frankly, the activities that happen in the school are very sports-based, and the community hall is a poor substitute for that. So you can't play basketball there, and you can't play floor hockey really, or whatever else. I guess floor hockey's not happening there, but you can't play those kind of larger sports. Even soccer, indoor soccer is tough in there with if you're an adult-sized person. So this concern, we understand the concern. This is one of the items that we would like to spend time with the school discussing, and as we as our relationship with the school matures, that we do get access into the school during the summer times and the Christmas and spring breaks, because we do know that's definitely a need that we're not meeting in recreation. Facility rentals, there's been some concerns raised about the priority of recreation and who gets to be in the hall. There are two significant users of the hall other than ourselves and recreation, and that's circuit court, which happens every 2 months for 2 days. And then there's the vaccination clinics, which are related to the pandemic that we're currently in. And so I think we're currently on our third clinic, and those are the only two uses that we've allowed in the hall during COVID. Obviously, these are both what we have as a hall and not necessarily just a purely recreation facility. And so this building is our civic building. So important civic activities such as court, it's something that I think that as a community or a society, it's important for us to deal with. And so that is one of the sort of trade-offs that we've decided to make. And then obviously the vaccination clinics will be a once-off for as long as the pandemic's with us, and hopefully not for that much longer. Our recreation is prioritized at the hall. We haven't rented out the hall privately in the last 2 years, and we made some changes to recreation policy a number of years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago at least, that prioritized recreation over other uses. And you know, what we did then is reduce the amount of time people could book it out. So we stopped seeing weddings come into the facility and other uses. So right now it's recreation, and recreation includes everything, right? It includes macrame, it includes theater, it includes pickleball, first aid. It's, you know, it's all we have. So those are the sort of the two outliers. And then obviously if there was an emergency, we'd be using that as an ESS reception center. Program cancellations, again, I think I touched on this in response to Councillor Anderson's questions. We assess 1 week before a program starts, and then drop-ins are assessed at 12 p.m. the day of the class. We've only canceled this, you know, once in the last 2 years. We try not to, but you know, they're just sometimes you'll get a program that either people aren't interested in or their vacations don't align, and we just can't make it work. But it won't be from lack of trying. Conclusion. I finally got to the end of this. I'm excited for 2022. I think Hillary and Danielle's our new recreation program one, are both excited for this as well. I think it's going to be a great year. We've got lots of new programs happening, a new team, some new ideas, and so I'm really excited about that. I do have to again just tell everyone that COVID again is our wild card. Hopefully we have some reduced restrictions tomorrow, but who knows? I imagine we're in this seriously again through March, and then hopefully maybe opening up again in the summer. But obviously I'm not a scientist, nor am I a virus, so I don't know how exactly this is going to turn out. That's it for my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions or concerns. I look forward to the budget discussions about the indoor recreation facility. I look forward to the discussions about staffing at the hall and the kitchen. I look forward to it all in general. And then I had a Leslie Nopes quote to start. So I have a Leslie Knope quote to finish. And for those you don't know Leslie Knope, she's a fictional character from the TV show Parks and Recreation, which is a very funny TV show and it reminds me a lot of my day some days. Anyways, happy to take any questions or comments.
Hey, Aaron, could you just stop screen share if you could there? Thanks. Wonderful. Thank you, Leslie Knope, being a hero to many in the recreation world. Are there any questions directly for Aaron at this time? Councillor Chalmers, and then Councillor Anderson. And then
I don't have a question so much as a comment. I just wanted to say thank you very much for this, Aaron, and as well as acknowledge how much the rec programming has been worked on over the past, especially the pandemic. And I feel that this department got put a little bit on the spot with having to defend things without a lot of backstory. But, you know, I think it's to be commended how much work has gone into doing as much as possible to continue recreation despite COVID and lack of staffing and all the struggles. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say, you know, it has been tough and you get all of the negative, and sometimes we just need to remember how much the staff is all trying and working, and it's great that effort goes out there. So thank you for the presentation as well.
Thank you, Councillor Chalmers. And I should just add that when I say these things, it's not that my staff's asking me to. They do the stuff without any concerns. They just do their jobs, and I'm the one trying to make sure that they're not overwhelmed. So I think all the thanks should go to Hillary and Danielle and Ava.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I'd echo Councillor Chalmers' remarks, and I think when we take criticism throughout the district for maybe responding too heavily to COVID, I think, you know, as an employer, we have, myself as an employer, I think it's underestimated sometimes the amount of responsibility the district bears and employers in general bear for the safety of their staff and of the people that they engage with. And so I think that may not be understood as well in the general public about how much responsibility as employers we bear for safety and how that factors into the decisions we have to make. when assembling people and attracting people to our businesses, etc. So I commend staff in all departments for all the work that we've had to do extra work and the decisions we've had to take over the past few years of the pandemic. The question that came to mind also when we were talking about the hall, I'm just wondering if if we're able to run more than one, sorry, I'm just losing my voice right now. If we're able to run more than one program at a time and utilize the addition to the hall and have a program that's more suitable to that room while running another program in the main hall.
Yes, we do that. If the program is suitable for being in there, we'll definitely run 2 programs at once.
That's great. Thanks.
And Councillor Thick.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, for your lengthy explanation. And I think that the questions and the letters that have come forward to council have come from a very good place. And I think that this community highly prizes that small facility. And it just goes to show from your presentation what a coveted place it is. So kudos to staff and a special shout out to Laura Lunty, who we haven't really been able to say a proper goodbye to, but certainly she was, as you spoke, I realized there was a real gap there upon her leaving. And the gap coincided with the fact that COVID hit hard, the weather came down, and it was like a triple whammy, I think, for this community when they felt that, oh my gosh, there's no space at the hall, there's no programming, it's COVID, it's getting cold. So I think that people are responding from their hearts and emotions to say, wow, we can't use it, there's no space. And I hear your concerns for staffing too. So I think it was a bad storm too over the last 6 weeks. So thank you for explaining that to us. Maybe I could just carry on for a minute. And I think that the background that precipitated this discussion was really in a very, it's come from a very good place. I don't have any ill feeling or anything like that. I am the recreation, I'm the council liaison for the Recreation Commission, and as such, the Recreation Commission also has a very vested interest. So not only do the public see this this program and this facility as theirs, but also the Rec Commission has a very big interest in, and having been my profession for a number of years, I also have a vested interest. So I think that everybody's coming from a very good place. And I just wanted to start out with that and say that the best interests of this community are very much in mind as we approach these questions. And I just think it's really hard because, we only have one indoor facility to use. We don't have any jurisdiction or authority over any other. We have collaboration with the school, but we don't have any other place that we can program. So that makes it, as I said earlier, really difficult. I think that the concerns brought forward were threefold. That people were asking for better utilization of the building to its full potential, and we've seen that with the upcoming programs that have just been released, and I'm very hopeful and thankful for that. And that I think people really would like to see a greater access for community members. And to that one, I wonder whether, going forward in the future, could we build up our volunteer capacity so that we could perhaps have some more people assist either on the door or instructing. Yeah, and I guess the only other thing I want to say is that it's pretty difficult in the middle of a pandemic to facilitate people gathering together, but that's what people really, really desperately want. So I think from my perspective, if I could put it down to one thing, I think that this building is highly coveted. It shows that we desperately, as our population grows, we desperately need a new facility for indoor use, for community use. And it really is very vitally important, just that people have an outlet for their own mental health, their physical well-being. And I don't see this as a luxury. I see it as a very, very important part of our life here. So I guess I just want to say thank you. And also that for me, and what I'm hearing through the community is there a way that we can further protect this facility for its community recreation use? I think maybe people are feeling that because of a dearth of programming over Christmas holidays, that they're feeling a bit on edge about it. And how can we be more nimble in our programming? If there's a couple of days here and a couple of days there, how can we have, is there a way to facilitate more drop-in programs to increase opportunities to play? And yeah, I just, I wasn't aware until you said that we have the policy that protects this place as a recreation priority, that the community hall has a recreation priority. I'm hearing you correctly on that, am I? And I think it's hard just because, you know, when I think about circuit court, just to get back to the nitty gritty, I think, well, is there any place else in this community? Could the Legion host that? Could the new RCMP building hold that? Could Tinwis hold that? Or could Tinwis hold the vaccination clinics, so that those erosions of time in that amazing small space could be preserved? So I'm thankful for your explanation, and I just want to speak on behalf of the people who've raised those concerns and say, how can we further protect this space? At the same time, we need to be thinking about what we can do to build this new recreation space. So thank you. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Councillor Thick. And if before I get to you, Councillor Chalmers, was there anybody else who didn't have a chance at this point? No, great. Councillor Chalmers?
Sure, I just have a quick question for Councillor Thick. Are you able to share the communication that you got? I didn't receive any emails from anybody with complaints, and I have to admit that I was a little caught off guard in the last meeting because I wasn't aware that it was a problem. So I'd love to have the same information if you are able to share any of those emails that you were saying that you got.
Yeah, thank you. I'll ask the letter writer
Thanks.
If that's possible. And I think sometimes, you know, in a small community, when we all know each other and we love the people here, we socialize, and we you know, we interact very closely. I think it's really hard sometimes because people feel that they're complaining too much, and I think they're afraid to complain without, you know, as we've heard tonight, the full story, and to then articulate, okay, so now as we look forward to 2022, how are we going to remedy those things? How are we going to protect this space? So yes, I will, to answer your question, I will see about getting those letters to you. And just so you know, that was the reason that it didn't come to the whole of council, is just because sometimes people feel that they are belaboring the point, and they don't want to put anybody down. They don't want to put the staff down. It's more about policy in place, I think. So I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Law.
Keep it short here. I just want to thank you, Aaron, for your work in recreation and your passion for recreation, and looking to the future always, and working for the future always. And I really want to thank you, Hillary, because you're right here for all the work you do, and deeply appreciate it. And I know that the community does too. And we do have limited resources in multiple fronts, and I recognize those. So I'm very much looking forward to 2022 and beyond. And I just want to thank council too, really, for the efforts on this front. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Law. Any other comments from council? I'll just wrap up with, you know, just echoing all the thanks. It's been done several times, so I won't further, but I think each and every one of staff have heard loud and clear our appreciation for the work that they do. And I just, and I'm excited for 2022 as well. I think with the service level review and some of the great positive things that'll come out of that, the Rec Commission review that's coming, and the amazing amount of programming that I'm seeing in that winter spring rec guide, to me, it indicated, but I think there's progress and things moving forward. And most of all, I'm really glad about the clarification that Mr. Rogers is not a virus. So I would thank everybody for their time today, and I appreciate very much your comments. That being said, we are at the point of the agenda where it is question period. And I do know that I see Ms. Dempsey there. Are there anybody who has questions for the Committee of the Whole today?
Yes, so I have Christine Lowther signed up for the question and answer period. So Ms. Lowther, I will promote you to panelist. Please state your full name and address for the public record, and then you have 2 minutes.
Hey, Chris, if you're there, you're muted. There you go.
Okay.
I see her.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Hi, Christine Lowther, 201-240 Arnett Road. So the LGBTQ people exist in across all the races and heritages. So I was just wondering about somehow including like a rainbow emblem on all of our signs, our welcome signs. Like at the junction and as they come into town, and at the tourist info center, and the one at the green. I'm just wondering if there's some way that we could include some kind of rainbow emblem somewhere in there. That was my question. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to look to staff because I don't have an answer. Sorry, Chris. Directly, or maybe look to other councillors if they might know, but maybe one of our staff members might be able to answer if that is a possibility, and if those what the technicalities may be in bringing something such as that forward.
Thanks.
I saw Mayor Law's hand go up there, so I'll go to Mayor Law.
Just want to just a bit of a point of order here. This is for council. Question period for council, so I don't want to put staff on the
Okay.
I'm speaking not as a chair, just as a point of order, but I can speak a little bit to Ms. Lowther with the rainbow emblem, and that I do know that staff had been working on a rainbow crosswalk, and I believe that there's also an Indigenous crosswalk, I believe, in the works. So.
Nice.
I'm not sure about further than that, but I have seen that from staff, and I'll leave it at that. But I do know that there has been discussion for many months, and it might have got put on the back burner over Christmas or something like that. But we should probably see something coming from staff to council in the next while.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any questions in the lineup there, or was Ms. Lowther the only one today?
Yes, Christine Lowther was the only one signed up.
Great.
I had a bit of a response to Christine's question as well.
Sorry,
And I'm not sure, Christine, if you were present when they presented, but I made a suggestion that maybe a planning document could be created with some strategic planning around inclusivity and in particularly the queer community. We have an age-friendly plan, and we have a number of planning documents that address specific communities and how to incorporate that into our higher level planning. And I think that's, rather than just sort of taking one project like a crosswalk or maybe incorporating in signage, to have an overarching plan that kind of hits on a number of fronts and has buy-in from the queer community and the larger community, I think goes a lot further than just, not saying that those things aren't important, but they're and they're also easy wins. They're easy to do. They've been done all over the place. But I think a bit more planning around it could go a little deeper and be more long lasting and have more impact. So I'm a real advocate for these planning documents, even though it seems like we have too many of them to ever accomplish them all. And they sit on the shelf gathering dust. They are used, and they, I think over time they have a lasting and deeper impact.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up there. Any other comments before? No. Great, thank you. Oh, and I just wanted to say, Councillor Thick, it hasn't been my experience that people have been afraid to complain to me at all in the community. So I'm glad that your experience is different. So with that in mind, if I could have a motion for adjournment. Great, thank you, Councillor Chalmers, seconded by Councillor McMaster. All in favor? Great, thank you. Motion passed. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.